All right, welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. We're live again, testing out our live video stream. This time it's actually live on YouTube. I'm here with Jeff at the top, Matty B at the bottom, and I'm stuck in the corner because, Skype. So we're trying out some different scenarios, trying to get everything running smoothly before football season. And the whole reason we started this early was because our Penguins were in the Stanley Cup Finals and, of course, back-to-back champions. So what are you guys' thoughts? Go ahead, Jeff. You can kick it off.
Well, starting off, it was a great, series. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I think the first thing, an early anticipation of a three-peat. I mean, looking forward to next year, they got the main stars back. You have Murray in goal, Crosby, Malkin. I think the formation for a three-peat, which the last time there was a three-peat in the NHL was the last time with the Islanders in the 80s, I believe. So everyone in Pittsburgh is very excited with the outcome of this season, going back-to-back. But now I think the thought is moving forward to maybe a three-peat. I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
Go ahead, Matt.
I definitely think it's plausible for that to happen. One of the things I want to see them improve on going into next year is definitely stuff with the defensive end, because you could tell definitely within the Nashville series how they did a very good job with keeping defenders off of the goalies. It seemed like when they do that, they're so tough to beat. But then again, as they start getting people crowding the box and pushing into the goaltenders, it makes so many second and third rebound chances available for them that it puts them at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I was worried at the start of that Game 6. I know I talked about it last week. I thought it was definitely going to go Game 7. It sure seemed like that. I don't know what the penalties were, but I don't remember the Penguins being on a penalty play. I don't know, our power play, but it just seemed like everything was going Nashville's way until the non-goal where they waved it off, and then they tried to do a review. I honestly thought they were going to overturn it. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was going to be overturned. And like you said, I also thought it was going to 7 games. The series started off in Pittsburgh, got 2 solid wins, and then when the series went to Nashville, honestly, I got a little scared. It felt like it was the Predator series at that point. They tied it up 2-2, going back to Pittsburgh, and the Penguins once again put on a clinic at home. I believe they, was it 7-0 they ended up winning? But, after that game, I felt pretty good. But going to Game 5, I was really nervous about the outcome of the series, because Nashville, they took all the momentum at home.
That's what I think we actually called that on last week's podcast. I told Matt I had a feeling, because that happened in the Capital series where they won like a similar 7-0 game or something. I think this one was 6-0, and they jumped out quick. So that game was really never in doubt. It was just, were they going to be able to steal one in Nashville?
I think Matty B is right. That was the Ottawa series when they went off in Game 5. They go to Ottawa, end up losing, and have to force that Game 7 in Pittsburgh. So I agree with you a lot there. It was a very similar situation, but this time they locked it up in Game 6 on the road.
And I think with both of those series, one of the things that you see is that dominance. I think when, like, sticking a dagger in the heart, both the Ottawa series and the Nashville series, when you get shelled the way they did that Nashville 6-0 game, it was a Tomlin special with 2 field goals to win it for the Penguins. They, how do you bounce back from that? I mean, there's no coming back. As soon as both series, it just the teams come out flat and defeated, and it's the Penguins for the taking. Plus, I like the fact that they're a seasoned team. They've been in the playoffs. They won the cup last year. They won it this year. It breeds going into that success going into next year, where they've been there, they've done that, and it's just a matter of doing it over again and repeating the process.
Yeah, and that's why you could see that composure going into that goal to win it at the end of the game. Like, it didn't surprise me. I actually had a feeling that if that didn't happen, it was going to go to overtime. I didn't have a good feel for the Penguins in overtime. They looked exhausted, and as soon as they scored, I knew it was over. So it let me relax, because up until that point, things were getting pretty tense around my house, pacing around, getting crazy. I can only wave the terrible towel so much.
Yeah. I think the one thing that's very interesting when you start talking about a three-peat for next year, this entire playoffs, we didn't even have our best defenseman in Chris Letang. And I'm not sure what your guys' opinion is either, but holy Mata, I don't know what it is. Like, there's sometimes, like, you see the talent, you see, what he does for the team, and there's other times he just has huge mental breakdowns on defense, something you wouldn't, expect from a professional. So I feel like you have the highs and lows. You have a Chris Letang, then you have Holy Mata. If they can, get Chris Letang back for next year, get a guy or two for, the back end, I think they have a real good shot. Because when you look at it, you have Crosby, Malkin, and Kessel, all phenomenal goal scorers. And then if you can shore up the defense a little bit, this year, they were really good, basically through all four lines. You had Brian Rusk, you had Getzel played out of his mind in this playoffs. I can't remember exactly what he ended up having 13 points this postseason, like the second ever for a rookie. When you have that kind of young talent, plus the veterans, you're in a real good position for a three-peat.
Yeah, I agree. And with Murray in goal, we discussed about maybe switching goalies last time. Didn't happen for the right reasons. He's going to be hot going into next year. And I just think, there's a really good chance. And which is crazy because I've seen a lot of different things floating around about the salary cap era. Some people never thought there would ever be back-to-back champions again. And now there's a good chance there's going to be a three-peat or at least a deep playoff run by the Penguins.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that the Penguins are already a 9-1 favorite to win it again next year. So, Vegas has them winning it again already. I mean, it's very early. I mean, the season just ended, but, as a Pittsburgh fan, very optimistic next year.
Yeah, it's looking really good.
One of the things I was thinking about was in the early 2000s, the Penguins were really struggling. And before it was the year that they drafted Crosby, I remember there was discussions about potentially trying to sell off the franchise and just dismantle the team because they weren't making money, they weren't winning games. And it was amazing how drastically things changed with the drafting of Crosby. I mean, they single-handedly, between him and then the next draft picking up Malkin, I mean, it single-handedly transformed the franchise just to show you what a good front office will do for an organization, being able to pick up quality players like that.
Yeah, and I don't exactly remember the sequence of the draft picks, but I'm pretty sure that Crosby, Malkin, and Fleury won 3 consecutive first-round picks in 3 drafts in a row. So the front office did a really good job with that. And I don't know if you guys talked about it last time on the podcast, but for Sullivan to go back to Murray, when Marc-Andre Fleury played phenomenal during the playoffs, he essentially locked down the Capitals series to, him have faith in Murray, who's a younger player, to put him in net. I think that speaks volumes for, him as a coach and, hopefully the continued success he's going to have in Pittsburgh.
I agree with that a lot. I'm surprised that he didn't make the switch because it seemed like he does a good job of riding the hot hand. Yeah. He went, with Murray to Fleury, Fleury to Murray. He seems to seamlessly be able to do it, and they don't really miss too much of a beat one way or the other. One of the things that I would worry about is when they go to do the expansion draft, one of those goalies is more than likely going to be picked up, and I would assume because of age, Fleury is going to be the one that's gone. Yeah. My thing would be, can they continue that level of success? Because the last couple of years they've had injuries at goaltender, and it's nice to have a great number 2 in a wing so that as soon as things open up, they can go right back to playing good hockey without worrying about a drop-off in talent.
That was going to be my next topic. Do you guys think Fleury's gone? For sure. Because I would imagine they're going to keep Murray.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's kind of sad, look at it because, Fleury's been, the franchise goalkeeper for many years. I really wanted him, to be left in there, like let him this season be his last hurrah, because there was a couple years ago, off the top of my head, I can't remember the coach's name, but he had some really poor playoff, performances, back-to-back seasons. People wanted his head. And then, him a couple years older now, he won a Stanley Cup outright, was it 2008, I think. And then, he's playing so well this postseason. And I would have loved for him just to ride it out because, like you just mentioned, I think he's gone. You go with the younger player. It's kind of like the passing of the torch. He's going to be now your franchise goalkeeper. for the next 5 to 10 years, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good in place to have Murray, just so they're ready for the next rebuild. Because you never know how much longer Crosby's going to play. He was banged up again this season. He's had a great career. He could step away basically at any time at this point. And it's good to have some nice young talent to go ahead and transition. They're setting themselves up basically like the Steelers. You have some young talent so that there's never that big drop-off that they had back in the early 2000s when there were rumors that the franchise might leave Pittsburgh or fold or whatever. So keeping that young talent around is going to be key to making sure there's not a huge drop-off and they're at least contending for the playoffs every year.
Yeah, Richie, I think you make a good point there. At this point in, Crosby's career, he's been the best player in the world, arguably for the last 5 to 10 years. He's had concussion problems his entire career. He has 3 Stanley Cups now. So, he's one concussion away, in my opinion, from retiring. It just makes sense physically and mentally at this point. How much more do you have to prove? I would love for him to see him play a couple more years, maybe get another championship or 2 in Pittsburgh. But there's not much you can do more as an athlete at this point in your career.
But I think one of the things, and I know I've talked about it a couple different places. It seems like with the NHL, Crosby's the face of the NHL, and they do absolutely nothing to protect him.
Yeah.
Team when it comes to the playoffs, it's like he has 2-3 guys hanging all over him all the time, and he's still able to produce goals. I don't know how long he can continue at the pace that he's doing with there being that lack of the NHL has this mindset where we're a more physical sport than others, so it's just playoff hockey. It's just a different atmosphere, and they use all these cliche excuses as to why they're going to allow their star player to get banged up. But no other sport in their right mind would let their star athlete take the beating that he does and put his health at risk before just justifying his playoff hockey or something like that.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why it depends on how long these guys can play. Malkin too, he's been beat up, so keeping these guys healthy, and if not, building that young talent. Get some young talent. The expansion draft, like Matt said, that scares me because that always depletes some of the top rosters because they're going to go after people that have that champion pedigree. That's how you build. I mean, look at the 90s in football when both the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars were able to turn the expansion draft into AFC and NFC championship berths in the 90s. So, they put the blueprint out there.
Yeah. Just to add to what Matt was saying, he's totally right. When you look at basketball, football, whether it's a quarterback in football or an elite scorer in basketball, they do anything they can to protect, the franchise player or the face of of the organization. You have Crosby out there, going after it, playing hard every single game. He essentially, in my opinion, kind of plays with a reckless abandon. Like, he takes so many unnecessary hits when the refs don't call this or that. He's always in the middle of the action, and it's very hard to do that over a long period of time. And, the amount of years he's going to be able to do that is probably dwindling at this point.
Talking about repeat champions, we'll go into the NBA Finals, which wrapped up early, and I had a feeling, and what was that official that got caught taking bribes or whatever? He came out and said that he thought the NBA was going to try to push the other officials to call fouls to extend the series, and I honestly thought that was going to happen. It looked like that's what the NHL was doing, trying to get to a Game 7. I guarantee they regretted that early whistle that took away the Nashville goal. But Warriors got it done. What do you guys think of that?
The NBA just baffles me, where you have this shuffling, and it just seems like you got your top 4 teams or 3 teams, and then it's just everyone else. And the talent level is so different that I don't even know how it can even be a viable competitive league. It just seems like everyone knew going in it was going to be Cavs Warriors, and everything else was just going through the motions. So to me, it was just kind of yawn till the finals, and even at that, Gold State they were just completely outmanned, outmatching Cleveland.
And on your point, I mentioned this before on the pod. I actually looked at the gambling lines if you were going to pick a Cavs-Warriors finals at the beginning of last year, and you were in the negatives, like on the line of that. So they knew that like you couldn't even go ahead and think, hey, I'm going to go ahead and parlay my bet here. Let's throw out a double bet, Cavs and Warriors. No, that's what they had, and they made sure that you couldn't go ahead and pick that and come out on top.
Honestly, I have some very strong opinions about this. Growing up, I wasn't the biggest basketball fan, but a lot of my friends enjoyed basketball, so I got into it. But like you said, before the season, I didn't even want to watch the playoffs because I knew it was going to be the Cavs versus Golden State. When you look at it on paper, there was no one that was going to beat them in their respective divisions. I guess conferences. And looking at that finals, it easily could have been a sweep. Golden State is so good right now; it's honestly unbelievable. When you go from a team that was 73 wins, 73-9, I think, and you add an MVP in Kevin Durant, it's honestly unbelievable. Every time in the series when the Cavs, it looked like they were going to go on a run, KD would just go to the rim, Curry would hit a 30-foot three. It was hard to watch at times. But I will say this, though. If the Cavs could have pulled out Game 3 at home, I think it would have been an interesting series. Because if you think of it last night to go into that game, it's 2-2, they lose, it's 3-2. You never know what's going to happen because then you go back to Cleveland, hopefully win another one at home, and then you go to Game 7 at Golden State. You never know. But as easy as that could have went 7 games, it could have been an over in 4, in my opinion.
With these NBA finals, it almost reminded me of what happens when you're playing video games and you put it on accept all trades and you just pick up whichever players you want. That's basically what it is. It's just who do I want on my team? Because from top to bottom, no one should be that loaded. But there you have it.
Well, see, they've been talking about, I agree on the parts where you're saying that it's a foregone conclusion who's going to be in the championship. They basically made 2 all-star teams. And when you look at it on the grand scheme of things, they're making up their own analytics to try to drive advertisers because people aren't interested. There's no team in Pittsburgh. So growing up, NBA is kind of if you're a fan, you pick whoever. Because of my last name, Leahy, I always cheered for the Celtics, the Irish connection, which will give a shout out to Ireland here. We actually made the top 10 on their iTunes charts. So thanks, keep it up. So great there. So another connection. But even this year, Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, I wasn't even excited. I knew there was no chance. I mean, you can be great so far, but that's it. So as a casual fan of one of the top teams, I've drove to Charlotte to watch the Celtics play. I used to have watch parties at my apartment. Matt came over for one of those. We'd get all riled up. Would go down to. I'd been to different bars to watch the Celtics play, and then this year it's kind of I'm not really interested. I'll casually watch, but I might play video games or something while the game's on. I'm not fully vested because a 30-point blowout, that's not a surprise, and I think that happened a few times. It's when you get there, there's just no chance, and I feel like every other fan of every other team has to feel the same way. And I know you turn into the finals because you love basketball, but even then Golden State was destroying the Cavs. And that's going to happen for a few more years. I don't know what everyone's contract situation is, but there's no way around it at this point. They're going to have a dynasty.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you mentioned about most people necessarily don't have a favorite team, because I know personally growing up, people liked the superstars, so they'd pick their favorite teams based on their favorite player, whether it was LeBron, Kobe, or whoever. And I think that's one of the biggest problems the NBA has is they don't really have necessarily loyal fan bases for the entire team. People just like certain stars. Some people are KC fans just because of Westbrook. they don't really care at all about the rest of the team, so, stuff like that. But getting back to the finals performance, I woke up this morning, I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter, people bashing LeBron, 5 NBA final losses. At the end of the day, I'm pretty sure this was his 7th consecutive NBA finals appearance. While he has 5 losses, he averaged a triple-double in this NBA finals, and no one cares because he didn't win at all. It honestly blows my mind. I would love to know how many triple-doubles were ever averaged in the NBA final, because it's honestly phenomenal. And for LeBron to do that in his 30s against a super team, there was points last night when I was watching the game where I was getting, a little too hopeful, and I thought the Cavs had a chance coming back. The one point in the game, I can't remember, it was the end of the third. I think it was Derek Williams. He shot a 3, and it rimmed out. And if he would have made that shot, they would have cut the deficit to 2. But, of course, Golden State goes down the other side of the court, hits another 2, and it's back up to 7. That was probably their closest, chance of getting a close game. And it's just, I don't know, it's just hard to watch because Kevin Love didn't show up last night. It's the NBA Finals. I don't think he scored his first bucket until the third quarter, while LeBron had almost, I think he had 12 in the first quarter, something like that. Like, he played consistently well, but at the end of the game, LeBron was taking it straight to the rim. In his 30s, fourth quarter, Game 5 of the NBA Finals, he's just coasting by people to the rim. Like, it's honestly phenomenal what that guy can do.
Yeah, and I have some points basically to what you talked about because I've been thinking about this for a while. Love doesn't fit in. What does he play there? The 4? The same as Bosch?
Yeah.
Like, LeBron is too big. LeBron is basically the 4, so you can't have those guys on the floor at the same time. Now, whatever they want to do with that, if they want to go a small lineup, kind of like what Golden State has, imagine with, like, LeBron in, like, the Draymond Green position. Like, they would be unstoppable. But the problem with the NBA, like you said, and I mentioned earlier, like, there's not that many teams, and the problem is they don't have, it's the way they market. They don't have regions, so there's no rivalries. If you think of, like, football, grew up in Pittsburgh, near Pittsburgh, so you knew that we hated the Browns. Like, you knew it was marketed. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, they hate each other. Then Baltimore, the team moves to Baltimore. Wow, that's another close team. Oh, we hate those guys too. Like, that's what the commercials were. It's always Pittsburgh versus the Ravens or Steelers versus Ravens. It's how they market the games. Like, that's the rivalry. You look at the NFC Central or whatever, the North with the Bears and the Lions and the Packers. Like, everyone knows the teams. Yeah, they still market the stars. Like, they market, hey, there's a huge rivalry game, and you'll get to see Aaron Rodgers. They, like, make it an afterthought. The only team that it's backwards on is the Patriots, and that's just due to Tom Brady or Belichick. Yeah. But those guys are just all-time greats. Basketball, if I'm watching a commercial, how many times do you see just the names? It's like, tune in to see LeBron. And I don't want to, like, you can't put it on LeBron. It's not his fault. But the way they marketed him, now it's become a players' league. And now as a fan, there's no attachment. So now I live in North Carolina. I'm close to the Hornets. I've been to their games when they were even the Bobcats. But, like, there's no drawing interest. If I try to watch games, even locally, they basically get no promotion. Everything is promoted to LeBron still. So, like, as an owner, like, I don't understand why these guys aren't speaking up. Maybe because they're making money. But they should be trying to get more promotion for their local teams. Especially now that, like, things are getting super expensive. They could go and undercut, like, some of the minor league baseball, like, go that direction. Because I don't know if you guys have ever been to an NBA game. It's kind of like that. That's the vibes that I get. Everything, they have, like, people come out and do, like, little skits in between. Basically they're sort of just like clowns and trapeze artists out there doing, like, jumps and stuff. That's how the NBA games are live. It reminded me of minor league baseball. They should cut prices to try to draw people in and bring that atmosphere. Because without that, you're not going to have these small market teams. They're never going to compete. And maybe they don't need to with streaming rights. And, yeah, there's only a handful of good players. Maybe over time they just cut these small teams out. Like, because there's the only other way they could rebuild it is if they went with what the Premier League does for soccer in England, where they have a relegation system, where if your team finishes bottom, you go to the minor league, you go to the NBA D League or whatever, and then they only have an upper tier. I've talked about it because I thought baseball might take advantage of that, because baseball was built on being a regional sport. And now you have people not attending the games. You don't have people definitely aren't watching baseball on TV. I mean, they have to do something.
Richie, you're missing out on. You were talking about like the Steelers and the local rivalries. When you look at like that AFC North, and you had Pittsburgh, and you have Baltimore, and even to a lesser extent Cincinnati. I mean, those three teams, Baltimore's won a Super Bowl recently, Pittsburgh's won Super Bowls recently. There's a level of competition that even within the conference, you can promote a rivalry when there's something there. When you take this whole Cleveland thing, where they're so leaps and bounds better than anyone on that side of the conference, you can't really market a big matchup or a big game, because there's so much, it's so lopsided to begin with, that you really can't market that kind of rivalry type game, because it's not there. It's grown men versus boys. You have the teams that are rebuilding versus the superstars that are already there, and it's what it's turned into is these teams that you want to get just good enough that then you can draw in one of those Kevin Durant type players that just wants the ring and is willing to go to a team that's going to contend.
Well, I wonder if Durant, because being a Celtics guy, he was really close to going to Boston. They had him in there. Would he have gotten the hate if he jumped to the Celtics last summer? I mean, they just signed Al Horford. I mean, they were Eastern Conference. So as another thing, like in a bizarro world, if Durant would have went to the Celtics, would they have got past Cleveland? Then would the winner have had a more even finals? I don't know. Would he still got the hate? I mean, you're still chasing a ring. You're still going to a contending team. Is it just because he went to a team that had already won? I don't know. Would that have helped to shift the balance? Because then you have some superstars split up again. I don't know. But back to the football thing, still, whenever you see commercials or they're promoting games, even when the Browns had Manziel, still wasn't like, come watch Roethlisberger battle Johnny Manziel. Like, even though there was lesser talent, they didn't try to pull in the stars like the NBA does with some of the smaller market teams. They're like, hey, what's the guy that was from Kentucky? Anthony Davis. They always try to promote him instead of like the Pelicans or whatever team he plays for. They're like, hey, you can watch this great guy play, even though his team's garbage and he can't even get his team to win a playoff series. So how great is the guy? I don't know. Anyone can make up stats on a bad team. Like, run wild if you're beating up Sisters of the Poor. But, I mean, that's just the difference between the two leagues. And in the long run, is it going to work? I don't know. Because you don't have that bond. Like, you're not going to get to your buddies to watch a game if they're changing teams every couple of years.
Yeah. I think you guys bring up, a couple of very interesting points. One thing we should add with the NBA, how about over the last couple of years, teams purposely tanking? How are you supposed to be invested in your local team when they aren't even trying to win games? They're trying to, be the bottom of the barrel so they can, win the lottery, the NBA lottery, and get a better player. Like, when you're putting a bad product on the floor day in and day out, how are you supposed to get excited? Like, there was a couple, couple years, the 76ers tanked on purpose.
Like,
and the only time. What?
Don't breaking my heart now. The Sixers.
Yeah.
You gotta try the process.
Well, I mean, that's one thing, but in the last couple of years, when the only people that ever, showed up at, Sixers games was to watch Kobe, to watch LeBron. They didn't even care who they're putting on the floor of their own team. So when you're talking about that regional, rivalries and all that, and you can't even put a good product on the floor because you're trying to lose, that's really rough for a fan base.
Yeah, and to that point, that's where I think the relegation thing can work, and they can go ahead and do what the NFL does, jam a bunch of teams in the same region. And how it works is you throw together, instead of only having 30 teams in the NBA, you basically double your teams. So now instead of just having a team in Charlotte, you have one in Raleigh too. You add one in Pittsburgh to fight Cleveland. And then for the teams that tank, if you're in last place like the Sixers, sorry Matt, if you're in last place so many years or even that year, you just drop and you don't have a chance to win the big title. And then it's kind of like what college football might be going this route, where you have the big dogs that are the big conference and they win the actual championship. And then the other guys have their own playoff, kind of like a minor league system. And that's basically the only thing that's going to save the NBA, because more teams, you'll have more people that are able to lure these free agents. Can you stop super teams? No. But the NBA has always had super teams. Yeah. I mean, in the 80s, they did promote it as teams. It was the Celtics versus the Lakers. Then it was the Bad Boys of Detroit. Then you bring in the Bulls. Even with Jordan, it was still the Bulls. Watch the Bulls and Michael Jordan. Even like the Rockets were good. They had Olajuwon. They could have marketed him a lot better, but they didn't do that. I don't know when the shift happened, if it was LeBron that caused it, but that's whenever they're building a thing now that, is there a way maybe you do some weird salary cap thing where you can only pay one player over 20. You add a bunch more teams, 20 million or something, and then you like slot it like that. You're still never going to stop the guys who are buddies like LeBron and like Wade getting together. One of them agrees to take a pay cut. You can't cut that out. But that's the only way I think that it would ever be fixed, because that would cut out teams from tanking. Because like you said, if you tank and you're in the bottom league, you're not going to get the door revenues from Kobe coming in. You're not going to get the door revenues from LeBron coming in, because their team's never going to end in last place. They're never going to be in that bottom league.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. I think in the next 5 years we're seeing a very interesting transition from players that I grew up watching, because Kobe's not playing anymore. How many more years is LeBron going to play? D Wade's on his last leg in his career. KD is a relatively young guy, but I'm pretty sure he's like 30. So how much longer? James Harden, Westbrook, like these guys have been around for a while. I guess the torch has been kind of passed through, like you said, Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. But I'm very curious to see in the next couple of years who are they going to pass the torch to? I guess one of the big ones, Kawhi Leonard for the Spurs. He's phenomenal. Not only does he put up points, he plays the best defense in the league, arguably the best defense. But it's going to be very interesting next couple of years, because LeBron's been the face of the NBA, in my opinion, other than Kobe in the last, 13, 14 years, when he came in the league at 18 years old. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see, who's the next up and coming.
Well, you have to pick guys that want to be there. Like, I don't think Kawhi wants to be in the spotlight. I mean, some guys like Tim Duncan, he didn't want to be there either, but he got so good and he was basically the best center that they had to keep talking about him, whether he wanted to give them time of day or not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you're at with Kawhi. And I think to a lesser extent, Paul George from the Pacers. I mean, he had the gruesome injury that probably shifted his career.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen commercials with him. He does like commercials, but he's not like a guy that's going to be out and about doing stuff on Twitter, making videos, like drawing attention to himself. Yeah. And will that change? Possibly. I mean, if you go to a bigger city, maybe. But there's only so many of those. And I honestly think they're going to be overshadowed no matter what happens due to the Golden State Warriors. Until that team breaks up. And even if that team breaks up, even if they don't, like LeBron's going to be recruiting his friends. Like, hey, guys, Dwayne Wade, come back, play one more year. Let's see if you can get a championship with me. Or whatever happens, I don't know. But then it's going to be two big superpowers. They're the teams that are always on TV, and the regional fans are going to drop off. They're going to turn back to college basketball.
See, that's one thing that's really interesting, too. You talk about LeBron bringing his friends in. I'm still surprised that him and Carmelo Anthony haven't played together yet. I feel like if you're the Cavs this year, you somehow try to make Kevin Love take a severe pay cut and maybe bring in Carmelo. But I don't even know how he would fit into that, that dynamic then. Because then you got Love, LeBron, Kyrie, and Carmelo. Like, I don't really know how that offense works. But
I have a feeling Love is gone.
Yeah.
I don't know what his salary or the contract details are, but I have a feeling that he's out. A guy like Carmelo, I think, meshes better with LeBron because he can spread the floor a little bit better and he can get his own shot. So if LeBron drives, which he does a lot, he gets double teamed, he can kick it to Melo, who, as the shot clock's winding down, he can get his own shot just like Wade did.
Yeah, that's good.
They just need a center too. Nothing against Tristan Thompson or whoever played center before. I mean, they just need a guy that can take up space and try to get those double teams away from LeBron. The best center I think that would have worked with LeBron would have been a guy like Kevin Garnett. Is he going to sit in the corner and shoot threes? No. But is he going to hit that 15-footer from the wing every time? Yeah. And then it's going to open up space, and then that's why you had a guy like when the Celtics had Paul Pierce, he's able to drive in, and he's getting those lanes. And that one year, he was basically one-on-one with LeBron, and they were going shot for shot. And whenever you have guys on your team like Garnett that you can kick it out to hit that 15-footer, it makes a big difference. And I just don't think there's any player in the league like that right now. Like they need sort of like a Dirk Nowitzki to play five, a big guy that can shoot that mid-range turnaround or mid-range jump or whatever, that takes Draymond Green out of the center because he's not going to be able to jump back and forth. And he's a little bit shorter too, so he can't block. He couldn't block Garnett's shot in his prime. There's no way. But they're just not built like that anymore. So
yeah. Well, I think you saw the evolution where the teams transition from the Duncan Robinson, the two big men in the post, and the transition to these smaller starting fives like Golden State has. I think if a team, and I'm going to homer it here, like the Sixers that has Noel and has Okafor, you can keep those guys healthy, and you can consistently get those short range points. Sometimes you can condense the gap, and I think you can see a swing in a team like that could possibly, they can draw in a Kevin Durant or something like that, given with the skill set that they have to say, hey, we got the big guys, we need some skill guys on the front court. Come on in, help us. We already have a solid foundation, and I think the NBA kind of helps deter some of the tanking because it's not a guarantee. Where in the NFL, if you tank and you lose all of your games, or you're doing dumb things and losing games, you can end up earning that top draft pick. With the NBA, it's the lottery system. So, I mean, you could tank and hypothetically still only end up with like a third or fourth round draft pick, or third or fourth round like overall pick. It doesn't help you. It only pays off when you tank, and then you get the number one pick so that you're able to draft that superstar that's coming out early. Outside of those top two picks, typically, you end up having to do your homework and trusting that you have a good enough front office to be able to pull in the right talent that's going to fit the needs of your team and not just pick based off of hype or what they were able to produce at college, because it's a big transition going to the NBA. And sometimes it's wide open shots that they were able to hit. Sometimes those windows are closed pretty quickly by the professional athletes.
Yeah, and even tanking, though, in the NBA, it's so different because, like this year, you get a team or a draft like this. Is there a real superstar? I don't see one. So the Celtics get the number one pick. I should be excited. But it's like, oh, we're going to draft another point guard. We already have Isaiah Thomas and we have Marcus Smart with 3 point guards out there at the same time. And then even if we do draft one, then that means one of those other guys is probably gone. So it's a rare time whenever like a LeBron comes. And then anything other than that is a crapshoot. If you look at the Cavs, how many number one picks did they have in a row? How many of them actually worked out? I don't think like 2 of them are in the league anymore. I don't know. I have to go back and look.
Yeah.
But
you brought up something interesting. So with LeBron, getting drafted first overall so many years ago, now he's currently 3-5 in NBA, history. Who would you rather have? Because, Kobe's retired now. Looking at their careers, if you had to draft Kobe or LeBron out of high school, which one do you take? Kobe's got 5 rings. LeBron's got 3.
It's LeBron every time.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I don't even think Kobe's in the discussion. There's other guys I would draft ahead of Kobe. Just because he got rings doesn't mean that he's the best. He's a shooter. LeBron does way more with the ball than what Kobe ever did.
That's the thing. Like, I agree with you 100%. Because I have a lot of friends that are, Kobe fans growing up, and they were posting on Twitter all this stuff. LeBron 5 losses, Kobe 5 wins. But at the end of the day, I honestly think that Kobe's a shooter. LeBron, when you average a triple-double in the NBA Finals, not only does he play offense, he plays defense, which, this series, there was times where I feel like he should have played a little harder on D, but he's also in his 30s. But I don't know. I think Kobe might be one of the best pure shooters ever, but I think LeBron's just a better overall basketball player.
Yeah, and you can see that with his longevity. He never had the valleys that Kobe has had. In his long career, there were times when Shaq left the Lakers, they were never a threat to win the championship until they rebuilt back up. LeBron goes to Cleveland, and even before he left for Miami, they were a legitimate threat every year. It took some front office finagling by the Celtics to get Garnett and everybody on the team to even compete, and LeBron was basically by himself those years.
Yeah.
And they were still shootouts.
Yeah.
It could have been coaching, could have been just players. He gets one more guy. Those couple years that they went 7 games with the Celtics or 6 games, whatever they were, he could have more rings.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it could be a toss-up. Either way. But when I look at when you compare Kobe with LeBron, Kobe played with Shaq, but to have a starting 5 of really good, superstar level talent, like you're seeing with Golden State and with Cleveland, if you were to surround Kobe with that, I just wonder what would his record have been? How many more championships could he have won, not having to deal with the fact that it was just him and Shaq for however many years, plus whoever else they were able to pick up on their team. I felt like it was a more balanced league, so there was a little bit more competition while Kobe was playing versus dealing now with LeBron, where he's a great player. He's a superstar player. He's done all the right things his whole career. He hasn't had, any of the legal issues that Kobe had that may have distracted him from playing. But I think there are so many other good players that he's played with that kind of elevated him through the course of his career, that LeBron has the rings and he has the championships, but put the same talent around Kobe, and I think that maybe Kobe edges him just in the fact that to have that, to not have to do everything on your own, and create everything on your own.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think that was Kobe's game, though. He was a pure shooter, found his spots, found his shots, you know what I mean? But if you just want the better basketball player, I think you pick LeBron, hands down.
I definitely think he would create mismatches, but just for conversation's sake, I think to put Kobe with some of these mega teams that we have now, I think he would have even more championships on his resume.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because in those eras that they didn't have that. Jordan, he didn't join the Pistons because he couldn't beat them. It took them a while to rebuild.
Yeah.
To be able to get past the Pistons for a while. If you watch the Bad Boys 30 for 30, you can see they beat him up pretty good the first couple years. So, it's just a different time. And I honestly don't think it's going to go away. Not with social media. It's too easy for basketball players whose faces are on TV. Every night someone casually clicking through, they can see them. Unlike the other sports, hockey, they wear helmets, whatever. Baseball has hats. Football, no way are you seeing their face unless they're on the sideline. And maybe soccer makes up some ground just due to some social media marketability. But I don't know.
I think that one other thing that you were talking about that kind of made me think is when you look at Jordan and Pippen, I think that's where Durant caught all his flack. It was between him and Westbrook building up Oak City and making them a competitive team. To have them break away would be comparable to having, the split up between Jordan and Pippen, where they were building up the Bulls to have one of those guys just bolt to play on one of the teams, like, to go to the Lakers or to go to the Celtics, would have been just as much of a hysterical type move, given the circumstances. I think that's where he's caught a lot of his flack, because it was, you're bailing when you could stay. It's not like there was a bad team around him, that they were a bottom dweller. He wanted to play for a contender. They were a contending team, and I think even when you see the season that Westbrook had, even if he stayed, I think they could have potentially put a run together for as well as Durant played and as well as good of a season Westbrook had, trying to prove that he didn't need Durant. You know, I think they could have done something had they stayed together. It almost reminded me of when Hossa was with the Penguins and he left to go to the Red Wings, saying he wanted to play for a winning team. And then that following season, the Penguins won the Stanley Cup, and he ended up having to eventually go to the Blackhawks before he got his cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't remember the exact details, but if you remember, Harden was on that Thunder team.
Yeah.
So imagine if they would have kept him, they would have had their own big three that might have been able to compete with Miami in their prime. Like, that would have been a killer series. I remember, like, there was some big deals with contracts and stuff, and maybe it was front office stuff that pushed Durant away. I mean, imagine going to work for someone that you don't like.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just too much for him to jump. And then, yeah, he was in a pick'em situation. If he would have went the other way and went to Boston, I still think he gets the flack for leaving. And I think it's unjust. Like, I think let him go, let him win, and let's see how many he can win. He went here. If he only does 2, I just think of, like, the LeBron thing when he went to Miami. He rattled off. Not 1, not 2. Like, this is the time where Durant goes. He doesn't have to go in the media and say, hey, I'm going to win 6 titles. But now's the time where they're probably going to keep him. Now, he shouldn't jump teams again.
Yeah.
If he wins 4 or 5 championships there, I think the Heat will die down. No one will talk about it anymore, about him jumping to a winner, because they'll have to get rid of some of those secondary players to keep him around. So it's basically in his court now. He got the first one. Can he do what LeBron didn't do in Miami and just win a bunch of consecutive championships?
You brought up a really interesting point. Think about how good the Spurs were a couple years ago, that they I don't want to say easily, but they beat the Thunder pretty handily when they had KD, Westbrook, Harden. Because that was a good team. And year in and year out, the Spurs put them down.
Well, think about it. That Spurs team was one crazy rebound pass to Ray Allen for that 3 to knock another one out of the Heat. And I think that's why, because they had the last great center. They had Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
No one can match up with him. The only team that really, if you look back through the Spurs there for a while, was whenever Dirk had he had a couple years there with the Mavs.
Yeah.
That was the matchup, them versus basically the Spurs. It was like some weird turmoil there. But other than that, yeah, you needed a big man that could get the job done. And no one was better than Duncan.
Yeah, and that's why the Lakers had trouble. Like, was it like around like 2009 when the Lakers, went to the last championship? Or no, that was before that. But the Lakers are the only ones to compete with the Spurs too. You're right. They had Tim Duncan, they had Parker, Ginobili. Like, they had their own big 3. And then when you have Greg Popovich running the ship, dude, you're gonna win games.
Well, even that's whenever you saw Shaq's farewell tour when he played with everybody. He played with the Celtics that one year. He played with the Cavs. He played with Miami. Everyone was like, all right, we need a center, because you're looking out west and you're seeing Duncan dominate.
Yeah.
And there's just no centers like that. And that's why I think they're trying to promote Anthony Davis. Like, hey, he's the next great center. He just needs to get it done now. And to that point, when you compare them, there's no comparison. Like, Duncan was unstoppable. No one could stop him in that series. And he was able to get enough done that he's given other guys like Ginobili like room to work. Yeah. It's crazy to think about it.
And Tony Parker always gets undershadowed as well. You do this, you're kind of like the Patriots. You have that great coach. People stay out of the spotlights. They say all the right things, and they win championships. That was the Spurs.
Yeah, we had a little hiccup there, I think from Skype. I don't know if we went too long, but it seems like we should be back up. I think the stream's live, but yeah, it looks like it is. Okay. Maybe we should end it there. Went pretty long. This is hopefully the new format, so hopefully everyone likes it. We'll be pushing this one out. Again, sorry for the weird video, people's heads getting cut off at the beginning. But we're trying to find a service that will let us broadcast everyone at the same time and turn it into more podcasts, like conversations or whatever I'm trying to say there. But I will be putting out a number, so if you want to call out, I've been working on getting the voicemail number. I had one set up before, but I'm putting up a new number that people can call in and leave voicemails if they want to play it on the show. So you'll be able to give your thoughts, put them back up. If not, ask questions on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you see us. But like us, subscribe, tell your friends. Leave a review on iTunes. Would like to get back on the charts and maybe hit some other countries. Anything else, you guys?
Go Pens.
Yeah, go Pens. All right. We'll be back next week.